My precious child, I want you to hear this. Forgiveness is not a race. It is not a goal with a finish line you must reach before you are good enough. It is a daily practice, a choice you make every morning when you wake up, a gentle whisper in your heart that says, I will not let the past control me today. And that choice, repeated again and again, grows into freedom. I want you to know that your journey is unique, and comparing yourself to anyone else will only bring frustration. Some will seem to move faster, some slower, but what matters is your steps, not their pace, because every step forward, no matter how small, chips away at the walls that pain built around your heart. You are learning to walk with grace, to walk with courage, to walk with patience, and that is not easy, my child. I see how hard you fight for your peace. I see the nights when sleep eludes you, when memories replay in your mind, when questions rise about why things happened, about who you are, about what you could have done differently, and I want you to hear me clearly. The answers to those questions are not in your guilt, not in your shame, not in blaming yourself, but in knowing your heart, your value, and your strength. You are not defined by what was done to you, you are defined by who you are in me, by who I have created you to be, and by the love I have placed in you that cannot be taken, broken, or destroyed. Every hurt you have endured, every tear, every betrayal, every rejection, every cruel word, they shaped you, yes, but they do not limit you. They were chapters in your story, but they are not the ending. And I want you to imagine your life as a book that you hold in your hands. Some pages are torn, some pages are smudged with tears, some pages seem blank because you cannot remember joy there, but every page matters, because every page leads to the next, and you have the power, with each act of forgiveness, with each decision to release bitterness, to turn the page and write a story of peace, of freedom, of love restored. And I know your heart may resist this, because pain is familiar, because holding on to anger feels like control, because bitterness feels like strength, but it is a false strength. True strength, real courage, is in letting go, in choosing to forgive, in deciding that your heart will no longer be imprisoned by what others have done. I want to remind you that the people who hurt you acted out of their own brokenness, not because of anything lacking in you. They carried wounds, fear, ignorance, and selfishness, and their actions are a reflection of them, not a measure of your worth. I see your beauty, your value, your potential, and I want you to see it too, because when you forgive, when you release, when you let go, you are finally able to look at yourself as I do, loved, precious, complete. And the freedom that comes from forgiveness is not just emotional or spiritual, it is physical, mental, relational, and even practical. When bitterness leaves, your body relaxes, your mind clears, your relationships are freed from suspicion, and opportunities that were once clouded by fear or anger now shine clearly before you. Every time you forgive, you are not just lightening your heart, you are opening doors in every area of your life that were locked by resentment. I want you to picture forgiveness as a river flowing through you. When you hold on to anger, it is like a dam blocking the river, causing pressure to build, creating erosion in your soul, in your relationships, in your health. When you forgive, even a little, you open the dam, and the water flows, carrying away the debris of the past, bringing life and nourishment to every part of your being. And I know that sometimes the river flows quickly, sometimes it trickles slowly, sometimes it feels blocked again, but each time you choose to forgive, you clear a path for the river to move freely again. And this river of forgiveness connects you back to me. I am the source of life, the source of love, the source of peace, and every act of forgiveness draws you closer to me, because bitterness and unforgiveness act like walls that separate you from the fullness of my presence. I want your heart to know my nearness, to feel my love, to experience the peace that surpasses understanding, and forgiveness is the key that unlocks that door. I also want to speak to the moments when the memory of pain feels too heavy, when the voice of anger, shame, or fear rises louder than your desire to forgive, and I want you to remember that you do not have to fight it alone. Call to me, talk to me, bring the memory, bring the wound, bring the tears, and I will meet you there. I do not grow weary of your pain, I do not grow tired of your questions, I do not leave you when the hurt feels unbearable. I am there, holding you, guiding you, strengthening you, and every time you return to me in honesty, in vulnerability, in rawness, you take a step forward. And I want to tell you something crucial: forgiveness is not a single moment, it is a lifelong practice. You may forgive someone today and find yourself needing to forgive them again tomorrow. You may forgive yourself once and discover that years later, new layers of self-condemnation arise that require forgiveness again. That does not mean you have failed, it means you are alive, and alive people continue to grow, to choose, to release, to love, to heal, and each act of forgiveness, no matter how small, strengthens you. And in this lifelong practice, I am teaching you patience, with others, with yourself, and with the process. I am teaching you resilience, because the world may not always understand why you let go, why you do not hold a grudge, why you do not seek revenge, but I understand, and I see, and I honor your courage. And I want to expand your vision for the future. When you forgive, you do not just find peace in your heart, you begin to attract a different kind of life. You begin to see people, opportunities, and experiences that align with the freedom you are walking in. Forgiveness acts like a magnet for goodness, because your heart, unbound by bitterness, can recognize love, opportunity, and joy when it appears. You no longer filter life through the lens of pain, instead, you are able to receive fully the blessings that have been waiting for you. And I want to remind you that this process is sacred, it is holy, it is a spiritual practice that draws heaven into your everyday life. Every time you forgive, you participate in the work of redemption in the world, because forgiveness is not just for you, it is for the healing of humanity, for the breaking of cycles, for the restoration of hearts. When you release anger, you are contributing to a world that needs less hatred, less judgment, less division, and more love. And this world is waiting for your heart to be free so that your light can shine fully. I want to reassure you that the people who hurt you, the situations that betrayed you, the relationships that ended in pain, they are not the end of your story. They are the beginning of your wisdom, your empathy, your strength, your capacity to love more fully. One day, you will see that the wounds you once thought ruined you actually made you capable of deep compassion, of authentic connection, of true understanding. And that is the treasure hidden in the trials, the ability to walk with others through pain because you have walked through it yourself. And I want you to know that every act of forgiveness, my precious child, I will keep speaking because your heart still needs reassurance and your spirit still needs space to rest, and I know that even now there are thoughts rising in you that say this sounds beautiful but I do not know if I can really live this way, and I want you to know that you do not have to figure it all out at once. Healing is not a leap, it is a series of small steps, and every small step you take toward forgiveness matters more than you realize, because each step loosens the grip of the past and strengthens your present, and I know you sometimes feel frustrated with yourself for not being further along, for still reacting, for still feeling pain, for still remembering, but I am not disappointed in you, I am proud of you for staying in the process, because staying is harder than giving up, and you stayed even when it hurt, and that tells me there is strength in you that you may not yet see. And I want to remind you that forgiveness is not something you perform to earn peace, it is something you practice until peace becomes natural again, and practice means patience, repetition, and compassion toward yourself, not pressure or self-judgment, and I want you to release the idea that you must forgive perfectly, because there is no such thing, there is only honest forgiveness, forgiveness that says today I choose not to hold on to this even if tomorrow I have to choose again, and that is enough. And I want to speak to the shame that sometimes creeps in when you think about what happened, the voice that asks why you stayed, why you did not speak up, why you did not leave sooner, why you trusted, why you hoped, and I want you to silence that voice with truth, because you made the best choices you could with the understanding and strength you had at the time, and blaming yourself now only adds another wound on top of the old one, and I do not want you wounded twice. And forgiving yourself means letting go of the belief that you should have been someone else back then. You were who you were, and I loved you then just as much as I love you now, and I am not asking you to erase your past self, I am asking you to embrace them with kindness, because that version of you survived something difficult and deserves compassion, not punishment, and as you forgive yourself, you may notice grief rising, grief for what you lost, for what you did not receive, for the years spent hurting, and that grief is not weakness, it is release, and it is safe to grieve, because grief clears space for new life, and I am with you in that grieving, I am not rushing you through it, I am sitting with you in it, and I want you to know that forgiveness does not mean you stop feeling sadness when you remember, it means the sadness no longer controls your choices, and that is an important difference, because feelings can exist without ruling you, and you are learning how to let emotions pass through without building a home inside you, and that is wisdom, and there may be moments when you feel anger again and you wonder if forgiveness has failed, but anger does not mean you have gone backward, it means another layer is ready to be released, and each layer brings you closer to freedom. And I want you to stop fearing the return of pain, because pain returning does not mean pain winning, it means pain leaving in stages, and I want you to trust that process. And I also want to tell you that forgiveness will change how you see yourself, because as you let go of bitterness, you will begin to notice your own gentleness, your empathy, your depth, and these are not weaknesses, they are strengths shaped by experience, and one day you will realize that the very pain you thought ruined you actually softened you, made you more aware, more compassionate, more alive, and you will see that you are capable of holding joy and pain without being destroyed by either, and that balance is maturity. And I want to speak to your future relationships now, because I know you fear repeating the past, and I want you to know that forgiving does not make you naive, it makes you discerning, because you will recognize red flags without panic, and you will recognize safety without suspicion, and you will learn to trust slowly and wisely, and that is healthy. And I want you to stop believing that you must choose between loving and protecting yourself, because you can do both. And forgiveness helps you do both without fear controlling you, and I want you to understand that your story is not a warning, it is a testimony in the making, not a loud one, but a quiet one that says healing is possible, that hearts can mend, that peace can return, and that brokenness does not have the final word, and there will be moments when you feel lighter and moments when you feel heavy again, but over time the light moments will grow longer and the heavy moments will pass quicker, and one day you will wake up and realize you have gone hours without thinking about what once consumed your mind, and that day will surprise you, and you will smile, and you will know that forgiveness worked, not because the memory vanished, but because it lost its power, and until that day comes fully, I want you to keep choosing kindness toward yourself, to keep breathing through the discomfort, to keep trusting that healing is happening even when it feels quiet, and remember this, you are not alone in this journey, I am with you in every step, in every choice, in every tear. And I will not leave you halfway healed, I will walk with you until peace feels familiar, until rest feels safe, and until your heart knows again how to live without fear. My precious child, let me keep speaking to you gently because your heart is still listening and there are layers within you that are only now beginning to breathe again, layers that learn to stay silent because speaking felt dangerous, layers that learn to expect disappointment because hope once hurt too much, and I want you to know that I am not overwhelmed by the depth of your pain or the length of your journey, I am patient with you, and I am not measuring your healing by speed but by honesty, by your willingness to keep coming back to me even when you feel tired, confused, or discouraged, and I know there are moments when you wonder why the pain still shows up after all this time, why memories still surface when you least expect them, why certain words, places, or faces can suddenly pull you back into feelings you thought you had moved past, and I want you to understand that this does not mean you are failing. It means your heart is learning to release what it once had to hold tightly to survive, and survival kept you alive, but it was never meant to be your forever state, because I created you for more than just enduring life, I created you to experience peace, joy, connection, and rest, and forgiveness is one of the doors that leads you there, even when it feels heavy at first, and I want to talk to you about the fear of emptiness. Because sometimes you hold on to pain not because you want it but because it has been with you so long that you do not know who you are without it, and the thought of letting it go feels like losing a part of yourself, but hear me clearly, the pain is not your identity, it is something that happened to you, and when you release it you are not losing yourself, you are finding yourself again, the version of you that existed before the hurt, the version of you that still exists beneath the scars, waiting to breathe freely, and I know you sometimes feel angry about how much the pain has taken from you, the time it stole, the relationships it affected, the confidence it weakened, the dreams it delayed, and that anger makes sense, and I am not asking you to ignore it, I am asking you to bring it to me, because anger that is brought into the light can heal, but anger that is buried turns into bitterness, and bitterness slowly hardens your heart, and I do not want your heart hardened, I want it healed and alive. And I want you to know that forgiving does not mean you suddenly feel compassion for the person who hurt you. It means you stop allowing their actions to decide how you feel about yourself, because their behavior was never a reflection of your worth, and I know you sometimes question your value because of what you endured, wondering why they chose to hurt you, wondering if something about you made you an easy target, but I tell you again, the harm done to you came from their brokenness, not your lack, and you did not attract pain because you were weak, you endured it because you were strong enough to survive it, and now that strength can be used to heal, not just to endure, and I want to remind you that forgiveness is not forgetting boundaries, because wisdom grows when you forgive, not blindness, and you are allowed to say no now. You are allowed to protect your peace, you are allowed to walk away from what harms you, and you do not need anger to justify distance. Peace is reason enough, and as you forgive, you may notice changes in yourself. Small ones at first, moments when you react less strongly, moments when your mind does not spiral as deeply, moments when you catch yourself choosing calm instead of replaying old wounds, and these moments matter because they are signs that healing is happening, even if the pain has not fully left yet, and I want you to celebrate these quiet victories, because healing often whispers before it shouts, and there may be days when you feel tempted to return to the old pain because it feels familiar, because unfamiliar peace can feel unsafe at first, but I want you to trust that peace is not a trick. It is your natural state, and your body and mind are simply learning how to live there again, and I want you to be gentle with yourself during this learning, because harshness will not speed your healing, kindness will, and now I want to speak to the part of you that still feels unseen, the part that wonders if anyone truly understands how deeply this affected you, and I want you to know that I do. I understand not just the events but the impact, the way it changed how you think, how you trust, how you love, how you see yourself. And I have been with you through all of it, even when you felt alone, even when you thought I was silent, I was near, holding space for you, waiting for the moment when you were ready to let me help carry what you could no longer hold, and that moment is now unfolding, and you do not have to rush it, just keep choosing honesty, keep choosing forgiveness again and again, even when it feels repetitive. Because repetition is how healing settles into the heart, and one day you will realize that the pain no longer controls your reactions, that the memory no longer steals your breath, that the anger no longer rises as quickly, and when that day comes you will see that forgiveness did not erase your story, it transformed it, and your story will become a source of compassion rather than pain, wisdom rather than fear, strength rather than shame. And I want you to know that the life ahead of you still holds beauty, connection, laughter, and love, and you are not disqualified from any of it because of what you went through, and forgiving the past makes room for these things to enter your life freely. And even now, as you read these words, something inside you is softening, something is loosening, something is beginning to trust again, and I want you to hold on to that, because it is the beginning of freedom, and I will continue walking with you, patiently, faithfully, step by step, until the weight you once carried becomes a memory instead of a burden, and your heart learns again how to rest. My precious child, there is a deep wound inside you that has never fully healed, a pain someone caused, words that cut you deeply, a betrayal that broke something in your heart, and even though you try to move on and forget, the pain keeps coming back like waves returning to the shore, and today I want to show you the path to true freedom by teaching you forgiveness, not the shallow kind the world talks about but the deep, life-changing forgiveness I give and teach, because I have seen the heavy weight you carry, the way you pretend everything is fine while breaking inside, the forced smiles toward those who hurt you, the tightness in your chest that never leaves, the burden you learn to live with because you did not know how to lay it down. But I tell you now that you do not have to carry it anymore. Healing is real, freedom is possible, and the chains of unforgiveness around your heart can be broken today. And you must understand this clearly in your soul, the hurt was real. Your pain mattered, what was done to you was wrong. I am not asking you to deny it or minimize it because I saw it all. I heard the words that made you feel worthless. I felt your heart break when trust was shattered. I caught every tear and heard every silent cry. I know the nights you lay awake replaying everything, blaming yourself and wondering why you were not enough. But hear me clearly, you did not deserve it. Their choice to hurt you reflects them, not you. You are not damaged, unlovable, or worthless because of someone else's actions. You are my child, deeply loved and valuable, and nothing can change that. But holding on to pain is not protecting you. Unforgiveness is not a shield, it is a prison, and you thought anger would keep you safe, but it only keeps you bound. Forgiveness is not weakness and it does not excuse what they did. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself. Because every time you replay the hurt you relive it, every time you hold bitterness you poison yourself, and every time you refuse to let go you give power to the one who hurt you. But when you forgive you take that power back, because they may have moved on while you remain trapped, and your unforgiveness is only hurting you, not them. And I know forgiveness feels unfair and impossible, but it is not about fairness, it is about freedom, because unforgiveness steals your peace, joy, trust, and future. It grows like a seed into bitterness that chokes love, hope, and peace, and its fruit shows in your thoughts, relationships, health, and spirit, creating distance between you and me, not because I left you, but because bitterness blocks your heart. And forgiveness does not mean reconciliation, trust, or putting yourself in danger again. it means releasing the past while setting wise boundaries, because forgiveness is a heart decision between you and me, and reconciliation requires change and trust, which is not always possible. And I want you to understand my forgiveness toward you. I forgave you fully before you ever asked. I paid the price myself. I do not keep record of your failures. I see you as new and clean, and I ask you to extend this same forgiveness to others, not because they deserve it, but because holding bitterness is destroying you, and you cannot fully experience my forgiveness while refusing to forgive others, because when your heart is clogged with unforgiveness, my grace cannot flow freely. And I know forgiveness is a process, not a one-time moment. And each time the pain returns, you choose again to let go, weakening bitterness little by little, and I walk with you in this journey, first by being honest about your pain and bringing it to me without excuses, then by releasing your demand for justice into my hands, trusting me to handle what you cannot, then by praying for those who hurt you, not to bless their wrongs but to free your heart, then by speaking forgiveness out loud as a decision even before feelings change, and then by setting healthy boundaries without bitterness, forgiving people in your heart while protecting yourself wisely. And I know there are wounds from family, friends, relationships, rejection, harsh words, work, church, and even from yourself, and I see them all, and I tell you that their failures do not define your worth. You are enough, you are loved, and you are called to a future not controlled by the past, and now I ask you to forgive yourself too, because I already have. And when you keep punishing yourself, you are holding on to what I have released, but my grace is enough, my sacrifice is complete, and today I invite you to lay this burden down and walk free. My precious child, let me continue speaking to your heart, because there is still so much healing I want to pour into you, so much light I want to shine into places you have kept hidden for years, places you learned to survive in silence, places where you told yourself to be strong while your heart was quietly crying for help, and I want you to know that I see not only what others did to you but also what you had to become just to survive it, the walls you built, the silence you learned, the habits you formed, the way you learned to numb yourself just to get through the day, and none of that makes you weak, it makes you human, and I am not ashamed of you for how you coped. I am gentle with you because I know you did the best you could with what you had at the time, and now I am inviting you into a new way of living, a lighter way, a freer way, where you no longer have to carry yesterday into today, because forgiveness is not just about releasing others. It is about reclaiming yourself, reclaiming your voice, reclaiming your joy, reclaiming your ability to feel again without fear, because unforgiveness hardens your heart not just toward others but toward yourself and toward life, and I want to soften what has grown hard, restore what has grown tired, and revive what you thought was dead, and I know you are afraid that if you let go you will lose control, that if you forgive you will forget the lesson, that if you release the pain it will mean it never mattered, but that fear is not truth, because forgiveness does not erase memory, it redeems it, it takes the power out of it so the memory no longer controls you, and you are not dishonouring your pain by forgiving, you are honouring your future, because your future deserves a version of you that is not chained to the past, and I want you to imagine for a moment what your life would feel like without this weight. Imagine waking up without the tightness in your chest. Imagine your mind being quiet instead of constantly replaying old scenes. Imagine trusting again without fear tightening your stomach. Imagine loving without waiting for it to be taken away. Imagine choosing joy without guilt. This is not a fantasy, this is the life I am inviting you into, and I know you worry that if you forgive people will think what they did was okay, but forgiveness is something that happens inside you. It does not rewrite history or remove consequences. It simply releases you from being tied to what happened. Because right now the pain is living rent-free in your mind, taking energy from your present, and I want your energy back, I want your focus back, I want your heart back, because you were not created to live in survival mode forever, you were created to live fully, deeply, freely, and I know the pain shaped you, but it does not get to define you, and I want you to understand something very important. Forgiveness does not mean you suddenly feel love toward the person who hurt you, it does not mean you want them in your life, it does not mean you trust them, it simply means you are no longer willing to let their actions control your emotions, your choices, or your future, and that is a powerful decision, and sometimes forgiveness starts very small, sometimes it sounds like saying, I choose to let this go even though it still hurts, sometimes it sounds like saying, I do not understand how to forgive yet but I am willing to try, sometimes it sounds like saying, help me because I cannot do this alone, and that willingness is enough for me to work with, because I am patient, I am gentle, and I never rush your healing, and I want to speak now to the part of you that feels tired of being strong, the the part of you that feels like you have carried everyone else's weight while no one carried yours, the part of you that learned to be independent because depending on others felt unsafe, the part of you that feels unseen even in a crowd. I see you. I see how much you have endured, and I'm telling you that you are allowed to rest, you are allowed to soften, you are allowed to need help, and forgiveness creates space for that rest because it stops the constant inner battle. And I also want to address the fear that forgiving will make you vulnerable again. But hear me clearly, forgiveness does not remove wisdom, it actually strengthens it, because bitterness clouds your judgment, but forgiveness clears your vision. It allows you to see people as they are, not through the lens of your wounds, and that clarity helps you choose better relationships, healthier boundaries, and safer connections. And you might be wondering why I care so much about this, why forgiveness matters so deeply, and it is because unforgiveness keeps you tied to moments that are over, while forgiveness allows you to step fully into the now. And I want your now to be full of life, not shadows, and I want to remind you again that healing is not linear. Some days you will feel strong and free, other days the pain will surprise you, but do not be discouraged by that. It does not mean you are going backward, it means your heart is processing, and every time you choose forgiveness again, even when it hurts, you are choosing freedom again, and that choice matters more than you realize, because over time it rewires how you think, how you feel, how you respond, and I want you to be patient with yourself during this process, because you did not get wounded overnight, and you will not heal overnight, but you are healing, even when it feels slow. And I want you to stop measuring your progress by how much pain you feel and start measuring it by how often you choose peace, because choosing peace in the middle of pain is growth. And now I want to speak directly to the future you are afraid to hope for, the future where you love again, trust again, dream again, and take risks again. I know you are afraid that hope will disappoint you, but hope anchored in me will not fail you, and forgiving the past makes room for hope to grow, because bitterness and hope cannot live in the same heart. One will always push the other out, and I want hope to win, and I want you to know that forgiveness will not make you forget what you learned, it will make the lesson wiser and less painful, because pain teaches loudly but love teaches deeply, and I want love to be your teacher now, and I want to speak one more truth into your heart: you are not behind, you are not late, you are not broken. Beyond repair, you are exactly where you need to be for healing to happen, and everything you have walked through can still be used for good, not because it was good, but because I am good, and I can bring beauty from ashes, strength from scars, compassion from suffering, and purpose from pain. And one day you will look back and realize that forgiving did not make you smaller, it made you lighter, it did not make you weaker, it made you freer, and it did not erase your story, it redeemed it. And now I invite you again, gently and patiently, to lay down what you have been carrying, to open your hands, to loosen your grip, to breathe deeply, and to trust me with what you cannot fix, because you were never meant to heal alone, and I am here, I have always been here, and I will walk with you every step of the way into the freedom, peace, and wholeness that I have always wanted for you.